So now I'm going to show you about ruffles. Okay, so we have 4 different sheets for ruffles for you to get an idea. Okay, so these 4 we're just going to do this in one lesson. So you can see there is this variation 1, okay, but then you see the ruffles are facing up. So the same variation which are like kind of quite plain, you don't see any movement, okay, there is not going to be any waves or something, it's quite plain when these are facing down. So the ruffles that are going to face up and the ruffles going to face down, there is a bit of change in which the way you will be holding the nozzle and the piping bag, there is an important change, and that you need to understand before you are attempting to make the ruffles. Either you should start from the top or should you start from the bottom. So the ruffles facing upward should start from the top, the ruffles facing downward, like where would you use like a downward ruffle, say maybe like a doll cake, and then you are making like ruffles like the gown of the doll or a Barbie, a cake where you're just going to fill the frills of a gown, right? And those are the ones that will start from the bottom because the ruffles will be facing downward. Like then if you're just going to make a general ruffle cake, or maybe you're just going to depict waves of the ocean, and then the ruffles have to be facing upward, and that way you cannot start that from the bottom, right? So you have to start that on the top. So you have to decide what is the kind of ruffle you want to do for your cake, whether it is downward or upward. And based on that, you have to know where you need to start the ruffles from. If it is facing upward, start from the top. If it is facing downward, then start from the bottom. Okay, so now what is the other variation? The other variation is just kind of has some movement. So that is what is the second ruffles variation. And the same thing, same with the movement. I'm going to show you how I'm going to move my hands to get the ruffles with these waves, and that will be for the downward. Okay, so I'm just going to keep the OHP sheet on top, and here is the ruffle nozzle. You can see now that the color is popping out, the broader base is seen, and then the pointy top is seen. And this is very important as you're doing the ruffle. The pointy side should be facing outward. I mean, it could be facing down or up based on the direction of the ruffle, but the broader side should be scratching the sheet, and that way if you're doing it on the cake, the broader end should be scratching the cake and going as you ruffle on the sides, or otherwise the ruffles will not have any hold as it is going to be placed on the cake, one below the other or one above the other. If this doesn't scratch the surface as you ruffle, then the entire thing will be weighed down and the entire ruffles will just fall out of the cake. So as you do, scratch the broader end. So for which you need to know which side of the nozzle you're using, whether the pointy side is outward or the broader side is outward. In your head, you just need to keep in mind the broader end is the one that needs to go scratching on the surface. Okay, so here I've just mentioned it as 45. Now the 45 here is not a 45 like this. This is 90 and this 45 is towards you. And this is upward ruffle. I'm going to start from the top, and you have to notice the broader end is going to scratch the sheet and the 45 is towards you. So the 90 with the broader end going to scratch the sheet, and the 45 is tilted towards you. Okay, and then I'm just going to start piping. More pressure, no ruffles, just keep going. So one row is done, and then another row, give enough gap, but don't have too much gap because the ruffle that you're going to pipe at the bottom should overlap the bottom edge of the ruffle that you just piped. Same way, enough pressure, keep going. So the faster you go, it's going to be like quite plain, no movement at all. The slower you go, then you will have a bit of movement that you can see there. So this is like faster than the second row. You can see the movement is quite less. And now on the fourth, I'm just going to go a bit slower. No movement. Hand just moves from the left to right. No movement at all. With just the speed of how much you're going to go from the left to right, the ruffles are just going to be plain, or it is going to have its own formation of waves because you're just going to pipe it a little slower. I'm not doing any movement, but I'm just piping a bit slower. So you see the difference between the third line and the fourth line. Without any movement, you can see, means my hand didn't move at all. I didn't try to give the waves, but it's just happened by itself because I moved slower. Okay, let me just do a few more lines. So these are quite natural when you do on your cake. Okay, so what you will do, just do 3 rows and then get approval. And once that is done, go ahead and then finish doing for the entire page, and for all the ruffles, the simple ones without too much movement is what you will do, and then you will get approval on that one. And I'm just going to scrape this out and then move on to the downward ruffle, again the one without any movement. So the ruffle that was facing upward, you know, the broader end was facing down and the narrow end was facing up. Now for the ruffles that are going to face downward, I'm going to turn this one more round, and so my broader end will be facing up and my narrow end will be facing down. So whichever direction your ruffles has to face, the narrow end should be facing that point. Okay, so upward ruffle, the pointy end facing upward, downward ruffle, the pointy end facing downward. Okay, now the 45 degrees, what does it mean in this one? So the position of the broader end and the narrow end has been fixed based on whether it is the upward ruffle or the downward ruffle. Okay, and then while this is 90, what is 45 on downward? Now for upward, you know, the 45 is tilting the hand towards you. Now for the downward, the 45 means tilting the hand away from you. Now when you tilt the hand away from you and then you start doing, then you start having the ruffles facing downward. So 90 degrees position, the broader end facing upward, that's 90. 45 is tilting away from you for downward ruffle, and then I'm going to start doing. No movement, it's just a bit slow. So the second row, I'm just doing it in such a way that the ruffles are just hiding the edge of the first one that I just piped, and there is no movement there. So I'm just going to start from the left. Border is scratching the sheet, go from the left to the right. And the speed will determine how much waves you will have. So this one, let me just do a bit slower. So you can see the waves. Now if you just go, now if I'm not putting in enough pressure, so obviously they'll be cut. The ruffles will just get disconnected. So doing it a bit slow. So there are a few which are having waves because we've done it slower. I've done it slower, and the ones that without waves are the ones that was just done swiftly with good amount of pressure from the left to the right. So with this, we have done the upward and the downward ruffle without much of waves. Now I'm just going to move on to the one with a bit of movement. So here again, that's the upward ruffles but with movement. Now you need to change back the position in which you are holding it. The broader end should be at the bottom and the narrow end should be facing upward. And then I'm going to do the same exact thing I did for the upward ruffle, the first variation. And now here I'm just going to have a bit of shake. I'm not going to do too much of back and forth. I'm just going to just wiggle around. Just a bit of shake is what I'm going to do. This will be my hand movement as I just move. Just a bit of shake. You're not going to come back and forth. Okay. So let me start. Just observe how the hand is just moving. Just a little bit of back and forth. It's just not even back and forth. It's just a little bit of vibration. That's what is happening. And you want it to be placed randomly. You don't want a specific pattern there. So that will be your upward ruffle on variation 2, which has quite a good amount of movement, but you can just see it's just out of movement that's been swiftly done by moving your hand. I'm just going to scrape this and then do the downward ruffle with the same variation. So for the downward ruffle, the broader end should be facing upward and the pointy end down, and then the hand shifts away from you, and that is a 45 degrees. I'm just going to start from the bottom, and the jerk or that vibration or the left and right movement or whatever you want to call it, that will just create the wave movement. So that will be the downward ruffles variation. So what you will do, you'll do one sheet after the other, show 3 rows of the first variation of the upward ruffle, which is the plain one without any movement or waves at all. And after 3 rows are approved, then you will do the entire sheet and then take approval. Similarly, you will do the same thing to the rest of the other 3 variations of ruffles, both upward and downward, all 4 together. First 3 rows, once that is approved, then the entire sheet, and you have the entire sheet approved, then you would have finished all the 4 different variations of ruffles in the piping practices lesson. See you in the next one.